room here, by a show of hands, does anybody here already own property in St. Martin? Okay, good. Ryan, how you doing? Fine. Okay. What about timeshare owners? Any timeshare owners here? Beautiful, beautiful. Is there anyone that's actively looking to purchase property in St. Martin at this time? Okay, you've made yourself a target for the blue shirts around here. Good luck getting out of here. What about has anybody spent, let's say, extensive time? So let's say a month or more on the island. Has anyone like rented a property, stayed here for a month and longer? Beautiful. Okay. And I'm assuming everyone here is a repeat visitor, right? Everyone, this is nobody's first time to the island. But let's see who can outdo who's been here more than 5 times. More than 10 times. 20 times. 30. Okay, we got some. Okay, we got. I think you're local by default already. So beautiful. Okay. So we're going to go straight into this. And again, the concept is, to relocate to St. Martin. What does that entail? So I specialize in real estate sales. But you do not have to purchase property to relocate here. Obviously, you can also rent a property. And we do have agents on our team that specialize in vacation rentals as well as long-term rentals if you're looking for something in that nature. But some of the things to consider, renting versus buying. So when you're ready to move down here, I guess all of you in this crowd are already very familiar with the island. But if you've been coming here just a few weeks at a time, it could be a different experience when you're here for several months. So perhaps an advantage of renting before purchasing is just to test out different neighborhoods, see the feel of what it's like to wake up and spend extensive period in those neighborhoods. It's obviously less of a commitment. But then again, if you rent for too long, if you were to do that for a 10-year period, probably you would have, been better off investing your money into a purchase. A question we've been asked a lot lately, of course, is it a safe investment given that we're in the hurricane zone? And I stumbled across an article on Forbes.com actually a few months ago, which highlighted a trend throughout the regions that have been hit with hurricanes, and they're actually advising people to seriously give consideration to investing in these regions because they found a consistent trend where pretty much the market will be slow for a few months right after a hurricane, and there might be a slight reduction in pricing, but then it's usually followed by several years of consistent and solid growth. So definitely that seems to be the pattern we're experiencing here in St. Martin. One of the important things to consider, of course, is the ability of the island to recover. And here in St. Martin, we've secured close to $500 million right now in recovery funds. And the French side is still also, that's not counting what's coming on the French side also. So there's several $100 million that is supposed to be earmarked for the French side coming directly from France. So I think it's a safe bet to speculate that the island is going to recover, is going to rebound. I think St. Martin as well has proven its resilience through these storms over the years. So I think it's something you can feel safe about. But again, relocating, that's definitely something you want to give consideration to, the pros and cons of renting versus buying. And there's a lot of real estate seminars out there as well that talk about the pros and cons in general. I'm not going to go into those details. But yeah, something to give thought to. If you're not too familiar with the island, I'd probably suggest get your feet wet first, rent a period maybe for 6 months to a year, and make sure that you purchase into a neighborhood that meets your needs correctly. The legal requirements to purchase here. So there are no restrictions on foreigners purchasing property in St. Martin. Now, there are a lot of islands in the Caribbean that do have restrictions, and I think this is one of the big reasons why St. Martin has become a popular destination, in particular for Americans and Canadians to purchase a second and third home. On some of the British islands, just to give you an example, you need to get a landholder's license. You have to apply for a landholder's license, which gives you the right to purchase property. And even then, local natives of the island would have the first right of refusal to purchase that property before you. That is not the case in St. Martin. There are, again, no restrictions to foreigners purchasing property here. So whether you're born here, been here for 10 generations, or it's your first week here, we all are on an equal playing field in terms of the ability to purchase property in St. Martin. So that's definitely a big comfort, and I think a big attraction for, again, especially Canadians and Americans. We've seen that. Another thing as well I want to touch on is just the legal procedure to purchase property here, because it's a little different than what you might be used to in the United States in particular. You don't need to have a real estate attorney present at closing. You can if you want. It's certainly your right if you want to. But property here is transferred via what's called a civil law notary, who essentially works as a legal advisor for both buyer and seller, a neutral party for buyer and seller. And I know the word notary might be a little deceptive coming from USA or Canada, because you've got a notary probably every post office in America or in Canada. But again, it's a civil law notary, so basically it's somebody who's been appointed by the Kingdom of Holland. They typically have about 20 years legal experience. There's only 3 notaries on the Dutch side that are authorized to transfer ownership. And again, that notary serves as a neutral party for buyer and seller. So they'll make sure that everyone's rights are protected and that you understand what your rights are and your obligations as well. So actually at the time of closing, the government guarantees you free and clear title. There's no such thing as title insurance in St. Martin, because again, it's guaranteed free and clear title. So I think that's another big level of comfort that has encouraged a lot of Americans and Canadians to purchase, secondary homes here. On the French side, so St. Martin is very unique. I guess all of you know that already, so I don't need to go into those details. But we have the French side and the Dutch side. Both of them have a civil law notary system. On the French side, it might be a little bit different. And just to talk about some of the differences between French and Dutch, I'm going to call up my colleague here, Mr. Pablo Yehuda. You can give him a round of applause, it's okay.
Yeah, Pablo!
So, Pablo's actually been an agent on my team for about a year or 2 now, and I'm excited to announce that just earlier this year, he became the first official franchisee of Island Real Estate Team. So he's going to be taking our brand over to the French side, and within the next 12 months, we hope to be opening an office on the French side. And he's already serving that market quite well, actually. So we're going to talk about some of the pros and cons about the Dutch side versus the French side. And I'm biased to the Dutch side, so I'm just letting you guys know this up front. That's going to be pretty obvious in our discussion. And rightfully so, he's biased to the French side. So it's maybe not necessarily a rap battle, but a real estate battle, if there's such a thing. No, but one of the things I really want to touch on first, Pablo, is annual property taxes. So on the Dutch side, you have no annual property taxes on your property. If you rent your property, you do have to pay tax on the income. Same thing on the French side, but no annual property taxes. Can you tell us what's it like on the French side?
You had to start with the property taxes.
Yeah.
So yeah, on the French side, we do have property taxes. They're not very different from US and Canada. It's about in the range of about 5%. We do not have school taxes. But the good thing about having taxes, you can actually pay for the roads.
Okay, that's a low blow, I agree. True, okay. Another one though, very important, is capital gains tax. So on the Dutch side of St. Martin, when you sell your property, assuming you sell it for a profit, there is no capital gains tax that's owed to the Dutch St. Martin government. Not the case on the French side, right?
Well, not really the case. So on the French side, we're looking at about between 33 and 35% of capital gains over the course of 30 years. So if you own a property for about 10 to 15 years, then the capital gains will go down. Now, if you own a property for 30 years, like I saw some people here, it's been coming to down for 30 years, then there's 0 capital gains. It's a good thing, right?
So it takes about 30 years, but it's a descending scale.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's talk closing costs. So when you purchase a property, as we mentioned, title is guaranteed free and clear at the time of closing on both French and Dutch side, if I'm not mistaken. But on the Dutch side, your closing costs, your total fees, are going to be somewhere in the window of 5 to 6%, depending if there's a mortgage involved or not. What's it like on the French side, Pablo?
Change subject. So on the French side, you're looking at about 10.5%, which 8% goes to the government to fund schools and roads, and then 3.5 go to the notary. So it's actually double.
When you're purchasing property on the Dutch side, all the contracts, the deeds, everything is in English. So if you don't speak French, there's no language barrier. But or if you're English speaking, there's no language barrier. On the French side, all the contracts and everything is in French, correct?
Yeah, I have a good answer for that. So, well, the contracts are in French. You have to go to the notary in French. Now, we do, as an agent, we do provide a full translation service, and the notary require a translator to be at the closing, so you guys can understand every single word they're saying. So it's not you're just going to go in and sign a paper in French and that's it. It's actually there's a translator that's going to be there with you. It's a requirement. So that makes the process easier, and we, as a provider, we will be there with you at closing to provide all this system. Now, I want to touch on the luxury section, right? Because that's a good, strong point for me.
I'd have to agree, Pablo. There's a neighborhood on the French side called Terrabas. I don't know who's familiar with Terrabas, but I'd have to agree. Hands down, Terrabas is the most exclusive neighborhood on the island. I think there's a good debate on the Dutch side as to what's the second best neighborhood on island. Even the French side could have a few neighborhoods in that discussion. But you're right, Pablo. Yeah, Terrabas will be the most exclusive. So from the luxury segment, I can agree. The French side really has perhaps a competitive advantage with that neighborhood in particular. Yeah.
Yeah, to be specific on Terrabas, all the lands is a minimum of 10,000 square meters. So about 100,000 square feet. 2.5 acres. So that's a minimum size of land. So which means that your property is going to be built maybe 10,000 square feet, and you have the whole area for yourself. So it's a very exclusive neighborhood. Even the President of the United States owns the property there. It's a beachfront property. So that brings a lot of, it's a good reputation, a bad reputation. I don't want to go there. But it's there, it's a fact, right? It's a fact.
Yeah. No comments. You know, and just one other thing, a big difference as well, what I found, and this is neither here nor there, but I find the French side to be definitely more of a European vibe, and the Dutch side a little bit more Americanized. They both have an amazing charm. They both let you know that you're in the Caribbean, but you'll find, for example, more fast food restaurants on the Dutch side than you will on the French side. Also, there's more, less population on the French side, so a little bit more green space. Thank you very much, Pablo. And if any of you guys want to check out his listings, it's IRETEAM.fr. IRETEAM.fr, and we look forward to opening our office together on the French side soon. Thank you, Pablo. So, moving on, we're going to touch on how you're going to pay for this property here in St. Martin. And I'd like to acknowledge Ms. Debbie Richardson here from First Caribbean Bank. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to give you the floor in a little bit, but I just want to touch on this first. So when you're ready to pay for when you're ready to purchase property here, it's great to know the banks in St. Martin do lend to non-residents. So in general speaking, typically the banks are going to be looking for about 35 to 50% down, and interest rates between 6 to 8% maybe. Maybe Debbie can beat that, I don't know. But I'm going to give her a chance in a little bit to explain a little bit more about their offerings. But other methods as well that you can use to purchase property in St. Martin besides bank financing is you can do seller financing. So you can do the seller, if they're in a position to and they're willing to, they can carry paper. They can do, they can essentially serve as a bank and have a mortgage registered against the property. If you don't keep up with your payments, it'll go to an auction procedure, just like a bank would take you to auction if you didn't keep up with your payments. So that is completely legal to do in St. Martin. It would be all documented. You would, if a seller was selling you the property and holding the note, they would have a mortgage registered against you. That is a possibility. Most sellers are not willing to do that, but there are case-by-case situations where that could be an approach. And also another option where we've seen some of our clients do is perhaps getting financing from the United States or Canada. Now, no bank in USA or Canada is going to give you a mortgage for property here, but some people have borrowed against assets they own in the US and Canada and then use that money to purchase here, or a personal line of credit. That's also something you might want to explore, but definitely give the banks here an opportunity. They've been, we've done some great deals actually with First Caribbean in particular post-hurricane. It's been very exciting working with them, so definitely give the local banks a chance because they do finance quite a few transactions from non-residents every year. And it is definitely a great option. And it's also good if you're going to be moving here to establish a relationship with the bank long term. So yes, you've got a few options there. Moving forward, finding the right property for you. So once you've decided, you know, whether you're going to rent or buy, but once you've kind of made the decision that you want to relocate here, it's important that you try to get it right, obviously. Then nobody wants to pick up and move. Even if you're renting, you have the ability to, you know, not commit long term, but still you want to get it right. Nobody enjoys moving from one property to the next. So just some basic guidelines. I always suggest know your budget before you start looking, because I've seen a lot of dreams get shattered when people fall in love with a property and then realize it's out of their price range or it's out of their reach, and it kind of kills the dream. So I think it's much better to start off knowing what your what's the bracket that you got to stay within, and then start searching from there. Other items on your list may have to give and take, so you consider views, proximity to the beach, proximity to certain amenities. Those are perhaps a little easy to trade off, but your budget is going to be something that's hard to work around. And again, nothing worse than falling in love with a property, visualizing you and your family living there, and then realizing it's just not attainable in the near future. Again, I've seen a lot of dreams and deals get killed over that. So start off with fair expectation is basically what I'm suggesting. So give yourself a good guideline and look at properties that are going to be within your budget. And then you can narrow down the search further, again, whether you prefer the eastern side, western side, and there's pros and cons in that, and you can always speak to one of our agents if you want to get more details on what location might best meet your lifestyle. But yeah, moving on from there. Finding a reliable real estate agent. So, obviously I'll say anybody that's wearing one of these blue polo shirts is qualified to work with you. But we're not the only agencies on island. It's a very competitive market. And one thing I want to point out, real estate agents in St. Martin do not need to be licensed. So you've got to be a little bit wary of that. Now, although agents are not required to be licensed, the industry does sort of self-regulate itself because it's a very small island. Word spreads very quickly. So what I would suggest, if you're thinking about working with a certain real estate agent, ask around about this person. Again, it's a small island, people know people, so ask around, see what kind of reviews you get on that person, because chances are if they've done some negative stuff, that reputation is going to follow them. Try to use somebody that you enjoy speaking with, that's important, but also somebody that has experience in the market, or at least is guided by somebody that is overseeing them with experience and knows the market. So one of the most important things that's overlooked, you might have an agent that you like working, that you like communicating with, but if they don't know the market, if they don't have product knowledge, you're going to be doing yourself an injustice, because some of the best deals get scooped up, quickly. And the only way you're going to have exposure to that is if you're using an agent that knows what's out there. So I can tell you, for example, after the hurricane, there were a few fire sales out there, and those really got scooped up, I want to say most part by locals or people that already had a presence on the island. They sort of had an inside track, if you will, to get that information, or able to get that information a little faster. So again, having the right agent that has product knowledge is very critical. I do want to do a little bit of self-promotion, but I'm not going to overdo it. So again, we're not the only agents on island. We welcome the opportunity to work with you, but either way, we're thankful that you're here this evening. So yeah, it's basic guidelines on who you should be working with. You're buying into a condo project, sometimes that's provided on site within that condo community, where they can do the basic management and maintenance on your behalf at a fee, of course. So moving forward from here, just something that you got to be aware of, adjusting to island time. So we started at 5:05, which was pretty good, Jeff. My bet was on 5:15, but 5:05 is really, really impressive. I thought 5:15 would have been good. So that's the island mentality in a nutshell. So when you own a property, and let's say you're expecting someone to come and fix an air conditioner or fix a fridge, and I can see Brian smiling because I know he's been through this. But if you're expecting, if a worker says, hey, I'll be there tomorrow at 10 a.m. to check out that AC for you, he might stick to his word in the sense that he's going to tell you the same thing tomorrow. I'll be there tomorrow at 10 a.m. Be there tomorrow at 10 a.m. Look, that's island time. Just, when it gets to you, turn everything off and go to the beach, and don't let it get the better of you. You will have to adapt to island time. That's maybe an extreme example I'm giving, but things just tend to run not like clockwork always. Yeah, so just have patience with that. And another thing you need to be aware of, when you have a place here in St. Martin, you will all of a sudden notice a lot of new friends and family that want to come visit. So just a little guideline, don't make your guest room too comfortable unless you really enjoy their company. But there will be, I think, no shortage of friends and family showing up once they hear you have a place here. So be ready for that as well.
I'll briefly walk you through the immigration process here in St. Martin. It's, as Arun already mentioned, a very friendly island, also for immigrants. Very easily to come here, especially if you don't want to work. Working is difficult. The only requirements are basically that you have housing and sufficient income. That's it. The housing, they assume since the 80s that people don't live on the street anymore. So sufficient income is the only requirement which you have to prove. And that's around 2,000 guilders, around $1,200, $1,300. For families, 3,000 guilders. If you can prove that, you can move to St. Martin, get an official residence permit. That's how simple it is. There are some formal requirements. You need to prove you exist, birth certificate, with the apostille if you're an American. If you're Canadian, legalized by the foreign ministry. Americans have it easier. They don't have a federal database on crime. So you just walk into your local sheriff's office, last place you live, and you get a police record. Often it only applies for that area where you were or lived. It basically doesn't say very much. It's still a formal requirement for to come here. The income can be proven by, let's say you have a pension fund, income from a pension fund, a letter from the pension fund, letter from an accountant, a bank declaration that you have a certain amount on your bank account. That all can be used to prove income. The question is whether you need to be a resident here. Americans are allowed to reside here for 6 months. If they come here as tourists, Canadians for 3 months, Europeans also for 3 months. If you fly up and down very often, there is no need to even get a residence permit. For Americans, there's even a more special option. It's the American Friendship Treaty. This was the staple of international relations back in the days, especially after World War II. America entered into a lot of these treaties with European countries, and one of them was with Holland, with the Netherlands. And the Netherlands was unique that they still had colonies back then. So they had a special rule for the colonies, Curaçao, Papua New Guinea. It was worded in the protocol. And back then you have to imagine that Curaçao, it's hard to imagine now, but was much richer than the Netherlands. Very much richer. GDP per capita about twice as large as the Netherlands. Mainly due to their oil factory. And for European Dutch it was almost impossible to come here. They needed special permits and the protection of the local Cursulinians. I say Cursulinians, it was Netherlands Antilles, but St. Martin was dirt poor back then. Nobody wanted to come here. Back in the 1957. So to protect the local market, there were very strict rules for European Dutch. And Cursulinians wanted to make sure that the treaty didn't give more rights to Americans than to these European Dutch. So they made a rule that all Americans were to be treated the same for immigration purposes as the European Dutch. Fast forward 60 years later, the European Dutch are treated much differently nowadays. They can come here and they need a residence permit. All they need is a declaration of legal stay. They're allowed to work the moment they file an application for that declaration. They're allowed to work. The reason why Americans can stay 6 months instead of the normal 3 months is also because European Dutch are allowed to stay 6 months. So this has a lot of advantages for Americans. The government refused to honor this treaty for many years, but thankfully certain people in the community have litigated all the way to the Court of Appeal. In 2014 it was confirmed that this treaty applies to every American here. So for you guys it's very simple to enter St. Martin, to work here, to reside here. The last question was about business, opening a business in St. Martin. St. Martin has freedom of business, also for foreigners. It means that any foreigner can come in here, open a business. The requirements are basically the same as for locals, except that there are some exceptions. One of them is that every American, Canadian, every foreigner will need a director's license. And every company they form will need a business license. These are very well, I say easily obtainable, legally very easy to obtain. Of course, as Arun already mentioned, there's island time, there's bureaucracy, so the requirements are on paper very simple, but it often takes a while before you get it. There are some fields whereby the permit is not granted at the moment. Take supermarkets, vending licenses, car rentals. Those businesses, there's a moratorium as they call it, so you're not allowed to open a business in one of those fields. Any other field, you open a limited liability company and you can start a business. For non-Americans, you can also get a residence permit based on this opening a business. It has has an advantage that you can work in the business. That's the only advantage as opposed to the normal one that you just reside on the island. I think those are the basic requirements, legal requirements for coming to St. Martin. I think Arun has later a little question round. If there's any specific questions, and you can answer them. There you go.
Thank you very much, Peter. We also have here tonight a real life testimony. So I don't know how many of you listen to the radio stations here. I'm sure if you do listen to radio, you've come across Mr. Jeffrey Sockern, aka Sock, from Island 92. We're thrilled that he's willing to share his testimony as an American who came here and used the American-Dutch Treaty. And I think of Sock as a local now, so I don't know how long you've been here exactly, but I'm sure he's going to share that with you. Please, Sock, thank you. The microphone. Thank you so much.
Welcome, good evening. How's everyone doing tonight? Good. Who's American? Raise it. Who has a U.S. passport? Who has who else has other? Any Canadians? Okay, cool. I'm an American. I came here for the first time in 1982 as a teenager with very big hair. Don't know what happened. I always said that when I turned 40, I was going to retire from Career 1 and go start Career 2. And friends of mine at the time owned Island 92, and I said, well, I'll come work with you guys. I'll go to broadcast school, I'll come volunteer, I'll come spend some time at the radio station. Don't go to school, just come, we'll teach you everything you need to know. Like, okay, and I'm like many Americans, many Canadians, we all like to dot our I's and cross our T's, make sure that we can legally do what we're going to do. And so I applied for residency, and I thought, okay, I'm going to retire. I'm retired, and I'll apply for a retired residency, which I applied for and got in 2007-ish. And then I ended up getting involved with the radio station, and this was all right around the time that all the litigation and stuff was going on with the Dutch-American Friendship Treaty. And I had been here probably 4 years, going on my 5th residency renewal. The old rules before they accepted the treaty was that after you had 5 consecutive renewals with no gaps in your residence permit, you got permanent residency. Or I guess technically, help me Peter with the Dutch, because there's like 3 words that I can't say, but I think it translates almost indefinitely. I think are the words that it uses on the permit. Yeah, those are the ones. I have the days of the week down after 11 years. That's the extent of my Dutch, by the way. And at that time of would have been my 5th renewal, the folks that were submitting my papers, I used one of the attorneys in the office next to me at the radio station, said, we're going to put it into the treaty, and so let's see what Dutch-American Friendship Treaty and see what happens. And lo and behold, not only did they process my renewal, but I was now granted residency under the Dutch-American Friendship Treaty, which is a very interesting document. It basically says that Americans are allowed to be here for just about a business or for any other legal purpose. And if anybody wants to see the actual text of the document, you can just Google Dutch-American Friendship Treaty and all the text is there. And if you get into the protocol and the notes, what Peter said is 100% correct. What it says is that for parts of the Kingdom of the Netherlands outside of Europe, American nationals shall be treated the same way that the European Dutch are treated. And if you go back a number of years ago, it was very hard for the European Dutch to be here. Now, fast forward all these years later, very easy to be here. Nobody thought when they changed our local law on admittance and expulsion that it was going to open the door for the United States. There was a ton of objection, I think, early on, and then finally, light dawned over Marblehead, the crystal ball went on, and people realized this is not such a bad thing. We're going to legalize a lot of people that can actually contribute to the tax coffers and contribute to the economy without taking jobs away from locals. And I think we're now 4 or 5 years into this, and it has not had a negative effect at all. I'll tell you this, I'll give you another example. My dad is going to be 85 this year. Mom and Dad first came, my mother is 7 years younger, I'm not allowed to say the number. Then I have to kill all of you. And Mom and Dad came here in the mid-1970s. We stayed on the French side at a place called the PLM Saint-Tropez, which is now, if you come over the bridge from Sandy Ground, there's a big kind of orange, yellowish building on the right that's apartments. That was the PLM Saint-Tropez. That's where I first stayed when I was probably 13 years old, 14 years old. And so Mom and Dad decided that they wanted to be here more than 6 months out of a year. I live here full time, I'm their only son, they want to be here. I said, listen, if we're going to do this, I'm way too high profile. We need to apply for residence permits. It's pretty easy to do. It's paperwork. It's lots of paperwork, but it's paperwork. You need a birth certificate. You need a recent birth certificate. You can't take the one that's in the drawer that's all crusty and folded up that's dated from 1950, whatever, right? And submit that. You need to get a new one. You need to have an apostille put on it. So you send that to the Secretary of State in the state where the document was issued. They'll send it back with a nice apostille. Same thing with the marriage certificate and divorce certificates. If a spouse if you've been widowed, you need the death certificate. You need a police report. Walk into your local police department saying, my police record. About a week later, it shows up in the mail. One of the things that they asked me, and this was really interesting as I was applying for Mom and Dad, they asked me about their health insurance, which is one of the other requirements when you come here and you want to be a resident. You have to have health insurance. And I said Dad was 85 and Mom was 7 years younger. You can imagine if I had to buy health insurance for them here, the only people that would be happy would be the people at Nagico with the dollar amount of the premium. Dad certainly would not be happy, but they said, what do Mom and Dad have for health insurance? Well, they have, Medicare, they've got all parts A, B, C, D, 40, all the bells and whistles. They've got all the supplements. And on top of that, they have medical evacuation through SkyMed. And if you those of you that listen on the radio, you hear Jeff and I talk about SkyMed all the time. So while immigration was not saying you have to have SkyMed, they wanted to know that they had medical evacuation insurance to make sure that they could be covered in the event that something happened. So I gathered all these documents. We filled out a form called Model 4, which is in Dutch, which was a challenge because it doesn't ask you the days of the week, which is the only thing I know in Dutch. We filled out the form, Mom and Dad signed it, we put a copy of their passport, all the pages in color, along with all these other documents. I went down to immigration and they said, your application is accepted, and about 4 months later, 4.5 months later, they called me and said, Mr. Sacre, you can come pick up your parents' residence permits, they're ready. Went down, said, listen, Mom and Dad are flying in a couple weeks, right? I said, yeah. So listen, get them to give you a power of attorney, get passport pictures. They actually let me pick up their residence permits. I picked them up for them, overnighted them, and to Connecticut. They got on a plane, they came in first time in 45 years as residents of the island through resident line. It's a lot of paperwork, but it's not hard. So if you're gonna be here more than 6 months. It's definitely worth something to try. I'm happy to, if anybody wants help, I'm happy to help if you don't know who to talk to. I'm not an attorney, I just play a doctor on the radio. I'm happy to help in any way that I can, answer questions later. It's a very remarkable treaty. And if you happen to be a Dutch person and you want to go to the United States, the procedure is a little different. Well, here we follow our law of admittance and expulsion, and it says that European Dutch can be here. And after 6 months, they simply need to be admitted by right. It's another Dutch word I can't pronounce. So when you go to the United States, if you want to apply under the treaty, if you're a Dutch passport holder, you will apply for an E1, E2, or E3 visa, which is business traders and the people that work for those companies. So it is reciprocal. The rules on each side are a little different. And with that, thank you for coming. Thank you for visiting our island. I'll talk to you tomorrow morning for 7 o'clock, 91.9 FM. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saad. Thank you very much. That's very, very useful information. So one thing, once you are able to move to the island and start working or retire, or once you're spending extensive time here, you know, one of the most important things you're going to need is a bank account. So I'm going to circle back now to Debbie Richardson, who I acknowledged earlier from First Caribbean Bank. Please give her a round of applause as she comes up here.
Everyone, good evening. I am Debbie Richardson. I am here from the CIBC First Caribbean International Bank. We are a Caribbean bank that is the mother of our bank, the CIBC in Canada, for the Canadians who are with us. We do offer mortgages for international clients, and the requirements are basically that you would need to put down 50% deposit based on the sale price. Like the two gentlemen before me, they spoke about residency. If you are a permanent resident or temporary resident, the percentages vary a little bit. So it could go up to 65%, depending on whether you're doing property purchase, construction, or equity financing. Okay, some of the things that you would require for us, which is similar to the immigration process, of course, is your Kyc documentation, which is like you need to identify who you are, so your passports. We request 2 forms of ID. It will be a passport and either a driver's license or an ID card. We would require your source of income, and again, that can be whether it is funds on your account that has been saved, if it's pension income, if it's rental income, or if it's business income. For the bank, the most appropriate source of income confirmation for non-resident clients that we require, especially for North American clients, would be your tax returns. That's the best indication and consistency of what is being declared, and that's what we would prefer to have. If it's income from your bank statement, from your bank accounts, then the bank statements, of course, we ask for between 3 to 6 months statements to confirm. When we speak of financing, we finance based on sale price or market value, whichever is lower. So at times you would have someone selling the property for maybe more than its value. How we determine the value would be based on valuations from our local appraisers. And so before the application can go through, we would either need an existing appraisal from the seller, or we would request a new appraisal to determine what the value of the property is. And so you may find that if there is maybe a couple thousand difference between the sale price and the value that you want to cover, that's okay, you make the additional injection, and our percentage of financing is based on the value. This is my colleague here, Mr. Director. Okay, so speaking of the appraisals, so you identify your property, you would get the appraisal, you know what it's valued, then you determine again. The best scenario is when it's valued, of course, way more than it is being sold for, but I just wanted to make it very make clear that there are times where it is valued less than it's being sold for, and so we finance based on the value. Okay? The documents that you will need for the loan would be, like I said, your ID, your source of income, and of course a signed sales purchase agreement confirming what the sales price is between you and the seller. Our application process, I know most people ask how long it takes. It is depending on how forthcoming the client is with the documentation. We try at the interview stage, once we've decided on the property, the client indicates what they want, we let you know what is needed, the appraisal. So at the instance when we have everything, our bank has an immediate 48-hour turnaround response time in terms of us getting back to you with an answer after your application has been completed. But your application has not started from the first deposit of your document, we're still collecting the documents. We also open accounts along with the loans, or even if you're not doing a purchase and you want to open an account, we do facilitate non-resident accounts. And so there was a very interesting battle between Pablo and Arun earlier about French side and Dutch side, and what the benefit you would have as a North American also is that you would have what we call a non-resident account. So whereas myself as a local, any US transaction I would take part of, I would have to pay a 1% license fee to the government. And I'm not sure if those of you who've been here many times, up to 20 times, have experienced this. But if you were to open an account and send your funds, because they're non-resident funds, you would not pay a 1% fee because of your non-resident status. So that would be something you may want to keep exercising the 6-month visit, because if you do become a resident, then you have to pay that 1%. Okay. So rates, I can discuss with you. For international mortgages, we use what we call LIBOR rates. So we have a 3.5 basis, and the difference is built on LIBOR. LIBOR is stock market based and varies. The last I checked, it was increasing, was like 1.5, 1.7. So on average, you look at 5%. I know Arun mentioned around 6, 7. It's a little lower than that, like 5.5.
Maybe if I may interject, we do fixed rates as well. So you could negotiate fixed rates.
Fixed rate for a fixed term.
Yes, for fixed term.
So you can have the first 5 years of your loan fixed, and let's say you have, most investment properties are 15-year terms, so you can do the first 5 years fixed with that rate, and then the other 10 years, once the first 5 years finish, we negotiate based on what the current LIBOR is at that time.
Yeah, I had one additional question, Debbie. Can you give a little information as to what's required to open a bank account here on the island?
So to open a bank account, we will need 2 forms of ID, like I mentioned before. Your source of income. This one can be either your latest income tax return, or it can be a letter from your pension account or your employer. We do require proof of address, and that can be sourced again from your account. So multiple documents carry multiple information, so sometimes we can use your driver's license to get your address, or we can use a bank statement, but we need the address confirmed. If you want to use a local address, we can use it as your mailing address, but for a non-resident account, we would prefer to have your physical address as your non-resident physical address. Yeah? So we're confirming ID, we're confirming address, we're confirming income, and we need a bank reference letter because you are not national. That's pretty much it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And Debbie and her associates will be available later on for question and answer as well at the end of the presentation. Moving on, another thing that's important, obviously, if you're living here for an extended period of time, is going to be insurance. And my understanding is once you have residency on the island, you can apply to get health insurance here in St. Martin. In some cases, it might be less expensive than what you pay in the United States. In some cases, it might be more. The gentleman sitting at the bar in the green shirt is actually the owner of Sun Insurance, which is one of the largest insurance brokerages on the island. And he's going to be available for question and answer afterwards if we have any technical questions on health insurance or even property insurance, which is something that I think is very relevant to touch on. You know, after everything that we've been through in the last year, you know, I'm proud to say that none of the insurance companies have folded. No one has declared bankruptcy. All the premiums are paid out. Maybe not everybody got what they wanted to get paid, but payments have been issued. And I read somewhere that it's almost $500 million in claims that have been settled, or
That's one.
that's just magical. That's just one company, close to $500 million, and then there's several other insurance companies as well. But generally, in terms of insuring your property, you're going to be looking at an annual premium of about 1% of the insured value, plus or minus, yeah. So if you have $1 million property, if you're insuring your property for $1 million, it's going to be about $10,000 a year for full coverage. That includes insurance, fire, theft, the works, yeah, everything. Hurricane, everything, full coverage. So again, Robin will be available for some questions later on, or even just after if you want to go up to him personally. I encourage it. He definitely knows the business well. So But in a nutshell, there's, the insurance companies on St. Martin that have a presence here have proven, they've been battle tested now, and they've definitely proven their ability to be resilient and to stand behind the claims as well. So that's something that's so important for the island. And I love this picture of Jeff Berger right here, for those of you that can see the slideshow. It looks like a very happy picture, but actually we're going to touch on something that may not be so happy when you're living here, and that's going to be the need to use SkyMed. I just want to give him a minute just to talk on this, because it is absolutely very relevant and something that you should certainly give consideration to when living here for an extended period or thinking of retiring here. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Arun. I want you to just be aware of a couple of things about SkyMed. Number one, as you already heard, medical evacuation insurance is required if you move here. But it's also very smart if you just happen to be visiting here or visiting anywhere else. There's a gentleman in this room who is waving his cane now, who is an example of what can happen. He fortunately is okay. He's going to make it home and have insurance, have surgery there. But he fell. The point of SkyMed is that anything can happen anywhere, and you need to be prepared for it. If you have to have a medical evacuation from anywhere in the USA, Canada, Mexico, the Bahamas, Bermuda, or anywhere in the Caribbean, it's going to cost you somewhere in the neighborhood of $35,000 to $50,000 in cash in advance. If you're in Mexico at the time, it could easily be over $100,000 back to the USA. And I'm talking Mexico to California is somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 in cash in advance. You want to avoid that. You also want to get back to hospitals and where your health insurance works. You want to get back to hospitals and doctors that you know and trust. And SkyMed enables you to do that. Global coverage is also available. I'm not going to give you a long speech about it, but it's something that is really valuable for you to have, both monetarily and physically. It's a very good thing to have. I got it about 16 years ago. Was talking about it for quite a while on my website, and I think for about a year SkyMed was saying, we want you to become an agent, we want you to become a rep. And I said no repeatedly to them. They worked on me for a year, and they said, okay, just keep mentioning us. We'll give you a website, we'll track what you do, and we'll pay you. I said, oh, okay. So that's one of the reasons I talk about SkyMed, to help fund what I do. And, and I believe in the product. I've seen a lot of medical evacuations be done out of St. Martin. There were 3 of them done between last Sunday morning, a week ago, Sunday morning, and Monday. 3 of them, 2 of which were within an hour of each other. So anything can happen anywhere. You just need to be prepared for it. SkyMed helps you do that. If you need information, I have some information with me. I'll be happy to talk to you offline. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Very useful information. So as we get ready to come to a conclusion, I thought it's important, since all of you are here with some interest of relocating to St. Martin, I thought it was fair to give you a little bit of local treatment. So we alluded to earlier that sometimes the best real estate deals get scooped up, let's say, by those who are on island and kind of have the inside track. Well, tonight, again, I'm giving you guys a little bit of local treatment. You're going to see something that no one else has seen. Maybe a few of the agents in these blue shirts, not even all of them have seen this video. But I've been in the planning stages for several months now with developers that are about to launch a project. This is inventory we plan to release sometime in January, maybe in late December. They're still finalizing the details, but the developers have actually given me permission to share this video here tonight. And the first 10 units, they are going to be offering a 10% discount off of the pre-construction discounts already. So without further ado, I'm just going to show you this quick video. California wants to get the local treatment and get in before we actually start advertising that, we certainly welcome you. Thank you guys once again for being here tonight. Before we actually wrap up, I just want to say a special thank you to my brother, Chef Dino, for allowing us to have this event here. And of course, the owners of the restaurant, Norman and Sue Waddy. I'm not sure if Sue is here, but I'd love to call you guys up here if you'd like to say a couple words. And again, thank you. I had a couple conversations. Few people have never been here before to this restaurant, so I'm glad that we could introduce this to those of you that have never been here before. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Arun. Hey, you cut my head off. You cut my head off. Look, I was quicker than me. So. Arun, Jeff, thank you very much for choosing us. It's always an honor to see new faces here. We have great, if you're thinking about coming to St. Martin, this is the place. St. Martin is 107 different nationalities. We have an incredible energy about us that's unlike anywhere else in the world. I think you will love being here. If you come, your family right away. I'd like to say that this building behind me is a 16th century building. It used to have there was a sugarcane boiling house, and today it's our biggest asset today, whereas in those days the biggest asset was sugarcane. Our biggest asset today is our own local hero, Arun Jagtiani. He asked me to do that, I did it. There's anything but, he's very shy, he's not like his brother. His brother is a sweet boy, he's just nice, confident guy. We'd like to recognize someone tonight that has contributed a lot to the island, that has stayed with us on the island, has always promoted our island. I know him personally, and you know, Jeff, we'd like to thank you for always being there for us. No one else on this island has received this. This is better than a Grammy. This is better than what the other one? Anyway, Oscar. This is introducing for the first time the Jeff Berger.
And for those of you who remember me from Temptation, we serve the same fare at night here as you would have enjoyed in Temptation over the years. So we look forward to having you stay for dinner tonight or another night, or you know, many of you have been to the island before, so I'm sure we will see you again.
I'd like to apologize that my wife isn't here tonight. She's in Massachusetts, tending to her mom's health. So if she was here, she'd be very happy for Jeff too. They're both from Massachusetts. And I don't know whose idea it was, Dino or my wife, to have the Jeff Berger, but I'm going to err and say, I'm going to say that it's going to be my wife's, because otherwise then I can get in trouble. So. Anyway, thank you very much for coming. Everyone, thank you.
And I actually, I actually know Jeff Sock to be a real burger connoisseur, so you know, we would be thrilled if Jeff, you know, took the first bite of a Jeff Burger tonight.
Cut that baby right down the middle.
Thank you guys so much for your time, and thank you Norman and Dino for hosting us this evening. Yeah, of course.
To show you what St. Martin will do to you, there's a girl over here, Sasha, who works for the team. She worked for me 14 years ago. She came as a student intern. She opened up our restaurant on the boardwalk. She bust her ass up. She left, went back to Holland, came back to St. Martin with a very arrogant Dutch lawyer. I told her, I said, sorry, that's not for you, Sasha. She took my advice, she came back, and she never left. She got 2 kids. So there you go. Welcome, Sasha.
Thank you. We found a way to put you in the spot, Sasha. So, again, thank you to everybody in attendance. CIBC, First Caribbean Bank, is handing out some information which will be very useful for you guys thinking about banking with them. And do we have any questions for anyone that spoke this evening? Any, please.
So, for the attorney or SOC, you guys both spoke about the residency. You spoke about the residency requirements, but what are any other pros to having it? And are there cons to having it, like the one banker spoke about having a 1% transfer fee with your banking?
Great question.
When you become a bona fide expatriate of the United States, the first 100,000-ish of foreign earned income is exempt from U.S. taxes. Now you're going to pay taxes here on that, but still a benefit that you're not paying taxes on that in the U.S. To me, that's a little benefit. A little benefit if you truly want to live, work, and reside here full time. You know, and just for me, it was about the peace of mind, right? Since this was going to be home, making sure that nobody was ever going to knock on my door at 12 o'clock in the morning and go, "Hey, Sock, you're not legal, get out." You know, I wanted to make sure that all my I's were dotted and T's were crossed.
SOC basically covered it. There can also be negatives tax-wise. It's very important you get very well advice on the tax issue. If you have a lot of income, you can get double tax in both St. Martin and the US. So that could be a negative. Advantages for Americans that you can work here. You get the residence, the declaration of legal stay. So some of you still look young enough to actually want to work. So that would be an advantage. I think those are the most major advantages, disadvantages, things to consider.
If you don't want to work, there's no income on the island, is it an advantage to getting permanent residency?
Besides what Dr. Stark said about the idea of having immigration kicked down your door, no.
So as a retired permanent resident, right, you would get, so in the U.S. we have Social Security numbers, that's our tax ID number. Here we have a document called a crib number, that's our tax ID number locally. I don't know what crib stands for, it's probably a long Dutch word, and Peter can help me.
Centraal registratienummer inkomstenbelasting.
See, I told you, I can't say that. So, one of the things that I do for mom and dad, or will do for mom and dad this year, right, is they will file, in addition to the U.S. tax return, they will file a St. Martin tax return under their local crib number that says they had no earned income here on St. Martin, and it will all be nil, if you will. So, it's a little bit of paperwork. But once again, if you're going to be here more than 6 months and you don't want to have to travel back and forth to kind of reset the clock, you know, it's the legal way to do it. Would be my reply.
Well, I have a retirement residency now, and I've got to renew it every 3 years. If I get permanent residency, does that negate?
No, you should go to. If I were you, I would go to immigration and say, I am a pensionado right now. I'm a pensioner right now. I would like to remain a pensioner, but I'd like you to change my status so it's reflected under the Dutch-American Friendship Treaty, so I'm reflected as permanent. And you're still a pensioner. If you don't work, you don't work.
Does that eliminate applying every 3 years?
Once you're permanent, you're permanent. Or once you're...
What's the Dutch word?
Once you obtain your verklaring van rechtswege, that's it. Unless you leave the island for a period longer than a year, then you lose your status. But then it's you get one document and it's legal for indefinite period. That's a big advantage, of course, as opposed to the temporary residence permit, as you mentioned. You have to renew it every year or every 3 years. Yeah.
How many renewals have you done?
287.
No, if you have any gaps.
I'm
No.
beyond the 5 years.
So they should be flipping you to permanent at this point anyway, which I don't quite.
They flew me to the 3 years instead of...
Right, but they should flip you to permanent, and you should when you, next time you apply, request you want to be permanent and go down that path, and then explain to them that you're American. They may have you fill out a different form, but you should be permanent at this point, especially if you've met the 5-year requirement.
One other question. You differentiated between the Dutch EU passport. Is that any EU passport or is it just Dutch?
Just Dutch.
Thank you.
Now, on the French side, I don't want to step on that. So on the French side, when you're on French St. Martin, you are in France. You're an overseas department of France. You are therefore in the EU. When you're in Dutch St. Martin, you are in a country within the country St. Martin, which is part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, or the Kingdom of the Netherlands is part of the EU. St. Martin is not. Dutch St. Martin is not. So if you are an EU passport holder citizen and you want to reside on the French side, it's easier than it is to reside on Dutch St. Martin, unless your passport is Dutch.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
I just want to let you know, Aaron's team actually, and he did not pay me to say this, Charisse and Andy, I know Andy I think is not here tonight, thank you for helping us find a rental. Looking forward to moving in 2 weeks. I work in St. Martin, so for those of you that are interested in learning, I'm not quite retired yet, but working in St. Martin, enjoying myself very much over the past week. My family's been here in 2 weeks. But I can't thank this team enough for helping me find the best location. They are the best. They knew exactly what I wanted, and they gave us exactly what we needed. So, good information.
I also just want to take a second to thank all of my colleagues that are here today, and everyone from Island Real Estate team who's volunteered their time to be here this evening to assist you, and also to help me put this presentation together, because I definitely did not do this by myself. So just thank you guys. Really appreciate all the hard work and effort. Any other questions? Yeah, oh, sorry.
I heard you talked about the director's license and the business license, but does that go along with getting residency as well, or can a non-resident hold those directors and business licenses?
It's indeed the second. A non-resident can hold a director's and business license. You can be a foreign national and be a director here at the local company. Happens quite often, especially in the trust world. That from Curacao or from Panama, or that persons are directors here. We also have American directors that are formerly director of a branch company here, but work with local people but are still formally the manager, director of the company. So as foreigner you can be a director.
Great, thank you. Any additional questions? No? Going once? Twice? I just want to thank all the other professionals as well that are here this evening. You can see all their logos here. Everybody that took the time to be a part of the presentation. Thank you guys so much. Really, really appreciate it. It's very happy to have you guys here. And of course, the man of the hour, Jeff Berger. Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to speak to this audience.
First, I want to thank everyone for coming. I highly recommend Arun. We picked him to do this for a reason. He knows what he's talking about. He has a tremendous reputation on the island. So if you are thinking about relocating here by starting a business or doing a vacation or rental property, he's the guy to see. His agency is the best. We have been recording this, and I think the rain delay didn't really affect us at all. So at some point that's going to be available on the JMD website, supporters website, and we may make it available a little more widely if you want to share it. So again, thank you, thanks to Aaron And we're going to be probably doing this again during the winter.
Look forward to it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Of course, we welcome any feedback on what we could do to make future presentations even more informative, but it was a pleasure speaking with you this evening. Thank you, guys.